Welcome to The Rock Live. I'm not Gabe. I'll be doing some worship here in a bit. We're going to be talking about some social issues going on in the world right now. And I got a Westmoreland hat. Shh, I'm not telling you who the guy was that gave it to me. And we're going to go to the guy in the chair.
That's me. Hang on. Go back to... Just kidding. Hey guys, welcome. As Cam said, we're going to talk today about... we're going to talk again about some of the things going on in the world around us. And he's going to do some worship. What I wanted to do tonight really is to give you guys some announcements. I'm looking over here. The camera's very sorry. I'm going to do some announcements on some of the stuff going on with our youth group, with when we're meeting, what stuff we're doing in the summer. I'm sure you guys all have those questions. So we're going to do all that tonight, and it's going to be a little more laid back. There's a subscribe button up here. Oh, did you already remove it?
Yeah, I removed it, but it's back. So
but it's back. So hit the subscribe button so that every time we go live, you can remove it now. It's probably right in my face. So that every time we go live, you can it notifies you. It notifies you. Sometimes we do random things throughout the week going live, and this way you'll know what's going on. You'll stay plugged in. So that's the first thing. The next thing for announcements, we have a lot of changes coming up. Wouldn't you say, Cam? I feel like they can't see you, but I feel like this is like a podcast setup too.
Oh,
like
yeah.
we're kind of just talking, even though no one can really see
We're
you.
just vibing.
The Rock Live. So this summer we're going to change a lot of things. As you know, for middle school we're not going to start meeting just yet. So here's what we're going to do. Sunday nights are going to stay as the Rock Live. So we're going to do youth group still on Sunday nights, and it's going to look a little more like this. I'm going to have people join me, and we're going to have conversations. We're going to have messages. We're going to have live worship. So we're going to change it like that just a little bit. But the Rock Live is still going. That's for those of you who maybe your parents don't let you come back to youth group just yet, or maybe you're a middle schooler and you have nothing else to do. This is for all of you guys. Just something for you to do, to be encouraged, to have something to do. So that's the first thing. Then the Rock gatherings. Can you guys do something for me? Whoever is watching, can you guys comment on YouTube and let me know if you can hear it? That's kind of the downside of not having our handy dandy tech team here.
Forgot to say that.
Is what?
Let's say comment.
Yeah, you guys can comment. If you comment anything here, I can see it. But yeah, I don't even know how it's. Hang on. Then maybe there's the Rock Gathering. So for youth group, we are going to start meeting in person, and that's pretty exciting. Wednesday nights is when we're going to do that. Wednesday nights, we're going to meet here. Outside as much as we can. If we can't meet outside, it's going to be in the fellowship hall, in the sanctuary, where it's very open. Our goal is to keep social distancing as much as we can. That means we're going to sit separate. That means we're not going to do games that require us touching the same objects or anything physical. That means hand sanitizer stations anywhere. Everything's going to be to where you don't really have to come in contact with anyone. You're going to be spaced out. We're really going to try very hard to honor that because some of you really do care or really are wondering about that, and I'm going to keep it as best as I can to the best of my ability. I'm not afraid to crack down on you guys if you guys are next to each other, holding hands, or whatever you people do nowadays. So you can tell your parents, that everything's going to be socially distanced. And Wednesday nights is when we're going to do it. So for the month of June, this is something, yes.
Wednesday nights is just high schoolers. Correct?
Wednesday night is just high school. Thank you. Wednesday night is just high school. For the rest of you, I was saying something.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Holding hands.
Holding hands?
Remember
No.
holding hands.
Oh, for the month of June, we're going to be doing something special on our Wednesday night, high school nights. We're just going to have some hangout sessions after youth group. So youth group will be from 7 to 8, and we're going to work all that in with worship, teaching, small groups, 7 to like 8:30 maybe. And for the month of June, It's totally optional, but we're gonna do events after youth group if the weather allows. So the things I have planned that might change is an outdoor movie after youth group, is getting a shaved ice truck, and we all kind of have shaved ice to where I don't think the person is, I don't know how it works, something like that. Other random stuff that I can't reveal yet because I don't know if I have approval. But for the month of June, we're gonna try to do some fun stuff because since we can't meet as often, we shouldn't really be having all these events because we're trying to limit exposure. So because of that, if you guys are not allowed to go out as much, I don't know. I maybe I need coffee. I don't know what's going on. If you guys can't go out as much, I'm trying to make everything be on like one night if possible. So that's happening, and that's it for announcements. You have anything else that I forget? Today's been a weird day, guys.
I would just reiterate that since that was a lot of info. Just reiterate. what Sunday-
Reiterating. Okay, you're right. Good. So to make it clear, so here are the plans for the summer. If you are a high school student, Wednesday nights we're gonna have youth group at 7 p.m. Out here at the church, outside if possible, with social distancing and all that, or in the fellowship hall if we need to be inside because of weather. So high school, 7 p.m. Wednesday nights, and for the month of June, we're not just gonna have youth group, but we're gonna have some kind of gatherings after that too. So like a movie night or a ice cream or shaved ice social, all that stuff. So if you're a middle schooler, we're still doing the Rock Live here in the youth room. If you're a middle schooler or if you just can't come to youth group, you're not allowed to come. We're still gonna be doing this. We're still gonna be doing fun stuff, and we're actually adding live worship now, so we're able to do all those things
On Sunday.
on Sunday nights. Sunday nights, 7 p.m. Rock Live is gonna stay the same. We're just adding Wednesday nights. That's it. So we're gonna move on to the next thing, which is talking about what's going on around us. I actually didn't even know. Someone just told me that there's a protest that was set up for today. Did I already start?
Yeah, it already started, right?
Yeah. And that's what we're talking about today. You know, if you have a phone, if you have social media, you know what's going on around the world with protesting and riots, and talk about racism and people being murdered. And I'm not going to go into detail about it because we already had 2 episodes talking about it in the culture. If you're interested, in the same YouTube channel, this YouTube channel, we have 2 episodes. I recommend part 2. Part 1 was a little rough. I was in a room with no AC, and the internet was lagging.
It was like 100 degrees outside.
It was hot, so we did it again. Part 2 kind of has the same thing reiterated in a cool setup, and I'm talking about these things with 2 of my friends from California. They're also youth pastors over there. So, now I got comments coming in. So, let's see. In the culture, we're going to talk about, or we talked about some of those things. So if you missed it, check it out. It's an hour long, but actually what I'm going to do is over the next week, I'm going to release clips in sections. There's like 4 sections, and I'm just going to release that if you don't want to watch the whole thing. Tonight, we're going to go over one of those sections that we talked about on Sunday because I think it's just fitting. So I'm actually not teaching tonight. Yay. I'm actually not teaching tonight. I'm going to share a clip that me and my 2 other friends, we were talking about this heavy issue about protesting and riots. So I'm going to play that for you guys. And if you guys have any questions at all during the video, you can comment them and I will answer them here live. So if you guys have any questions at all during the video, just comment them and we'll answer that after the video. So you can go ahead. Riots, but actually not just riots and protesting. What should we as followers of Jesus do and think about riots and protesting? What's the biblical perspective to take from this? What's something to keep in mind? So, Sean, you're going to lead that discussion for us. You prep something.
If you guys have been watching the news the past few days, you know that there's been tons of coverage about buildings being burned down, even so close to home. I thought it was crazy that just a few days ago, watching what was happening over La Mesa, and literally seeing a Chase Bank. I used to bank with Chase, and seeing a Chase Bank burn down to rubble, down to the ground. Yeah. Riots breaking out like crazy, everything on fire. I mean, people were just losing their mind. Or over in Minneapolis, you know, as soon as George Floyd had died at the hands of the officer, that, you know, you would think that protesting would have a much more of a plan and a structure and a purpose. But later that day, they took to a Target, looted the whole place, and burned it also. And just all of this craziness. Is that what Christians are supposed to do? If we see injustice, do we go straight for the throat and just start attacking people physically and attacking their property? Well, of course, we should all know that the answer is blatantly, absolutely not. My brother-in-law, shout out to David De La Garza. If you're watching this, love you and praying for you. He had actually asked the question through Instagram story. He had tagged me in it about Jesus when he was turning the tables. You know, sometimes we jokingly ask the question, well, what would Jesus do? Well, flipping tables is one of the options because Jesus has done that before.
Yeah.
And so if Jesus did that kind of stuff and drove out the animals and money changers and just the wickedness that was going on in that day at the very temple, the house of God, then how are Christians supposed to respond biblically to protests? Should Christians protest? How should that look like? Well, very quickly, number one, I'm very grateful for that question. I think that's a question a lot of people are asking. You know, how should we as Christians, think and do and act? And for the sake of time, Jesus was a protester. Jesus was protesting the wickedness of the time, which is why he drove out those people at the temple. He said, my Father's house is to be a house of prayer, not a house of wickedness and where people are getting ripped off. You know, as we know, we're studying the Word. These innocent people were going to the temple. They wanted to worship. Many of them had taken out all of their savings for these animals and had walked all of this way only to get ripped off at the temple, and that was totally not God-honoring. And when Jesus showed up, he protested and drove them out and reminded them of what the standard of righteousness and justice actually is. There's actually a great article that I had come across from Sojourners.com. In fact, maybe at this time we can link it somewhere or show it somewhere. Sojourners.com, you can go and check it out. It was a post that was done in 2016, but very relevant even 4 years later to today, just talking about how Christians are supposed to be thinking and acting during times of injustice. And something that I share personally is that I never want me and my family to ever be the kinds of people who see injustice right in front of us and then do nothing and say nothing about it, and especially have no empathy or sympathy about it. We should not just think the right thoughts, but we need to get emotional about this. We know that statistics don't drive people, numbers and knowledge doesn't drive people. You have to really feel it in your gut, like it makes you sick. When Victoria showed me that video, because she saw it before I did, of George Floyd in Minneapolis, I was angry, I was nauseous, I was sick to my stomach, just how long that had, his knee was on his throat, and just the other officers who were totally cowardice. Just going to say it out loud. They were cowards, and they did not stand up for justice. When they wore the badge, they were there to protect and serve. And so we need to not just know the right information, we need to get emotional about this, because information informs people, but emotions drive people to action. And so we need to really feel this. We need to feel what's really going on in our culture today. And if you didn't know, Protestants, right, Christian Protestants, we actually get that name from when we were protesting against the Catholic Church and the false gospel, false teaching going on in the 1500s. Of course, Martin Luther, the very vociferous German scholar that he was, really was the spearhead of that whole movement at that time. And so there's a couple of verses, passages I just want to bring to the forefront based on time, and this is a conversation, just maybe your guys' thoughts on these two passages. And the two passages for you to really keep in mind as we continue talking about this are Romans chapter 13, verse 1 through 7, and Acts chapter 5, verse 29. Really quickly, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Romans chapter 13, this is Paul writing to the Romans. Again, Roman government was very oppressive of Christianity. So let's put that up front. And yet Paul said in Romans 13, 1 through 7, that we as Christians need to be submissive to our government. That's a pretty harsh statement, considering that the Roman government was burning people at the stake, and the Jewish government was obviously one of the uprising entities during that time to stir up strife. And the other passage to counterbalance that is Acts chapter 5, verse 29, where Peter and John, they're at the temple preaching the gospel, people are getting saved, miracles are happening. The religious leaders come by, grab them, arrest them, beat them, and they say, "Don't preach the name of Jesus." Well, we're enlisted into God's army. We can't do that. We have sworn an oath to the Lord Jesus as our commander that we will uphold the gospel and biblical truths. We will not negotiate on that. And so what did Peter and John say? It's better to obey God rather than man.
Yeah.
And so we only obey government up unto the point that they begin to infringe on God's government and God's
Wow.
law.
Mhm.
And so we need to keep that in mind. And
So I know that's
Something to
I know
think
that's the question that a lot of people have, that sometimes we wonder where the line is, because we know, and actually many people might know somewhere in the Bible, yes, it says we have to obey government, and most people don't know the reference. But then the thing is, but when do we not? See, right now, the reason that there's protests and turning into riots is because people feel like the government's not doing their job. They feel that the government is wrong, so this doesn't apply. People feel because, what you said is, as long as it doesn't infringe, but people feel like right now it's infringing. People feel like right now the government's not doing their job and not protecting people. They feel like that's wrong, so they protest, which turns to riots. So the question really is, like, where's the line? I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and it's interesting because a lot of people have the opinion that people are rioting, people are protesting about this. Not that it doesn't matter, but it's more so because of what's going on in the world right now. People have been at home for months.
edgy.
People are edgy. People are tired. People have lost jobs. People don't have money. People are just upset at the world and at the government and at the president and at cops. And then this blows it up. I saw a picture that this is like the tip of the iceberg. So what happened with George Floyd, as much as it was a tragedy, it's like this is all not because of him, but just everything that's been going on and building up, and now this happened. But sometimes people react, because we're talking of protests and riots. People react in ways that kind of don't make sense. Scottsdale is a very wealthy community.
Mhm.
Why are they rioting? What are they protesting? Or Santa Clarita, I was listening to this. People are rioting in Santa Clarita and protesting when I don't know if it's just protesting but either one. People are protesting, and if you look at the demographic of that area, it's very wealthy. And the people protesting have their $1,000 phones and their like designer backpacks and their like super clean shoes, and they're rioting about injustice. And it's like, what do you know about injustice? You don't know anything about injustice. You don't come from it. Sometimes people are just so ready to just do something that they're like, let's go, listen. It's like,
Yeah.
and it's like they don't even know sometimes what they're fighting for. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and reading articles by people of color, and as I say this, just because I know I'm going to mess this up at some point, I don't know if it's right or wrong to say black people or African American or people of color. I've heard people say, you said it right, people are saying, don't call me African American, I'm not from Africa, or don't say people of color, I know you're talking about me, I'm black. Just say, I don't know what. I have friends that are black, and they just say what it is. I don't know. If you have a problem, you can correct me. Yeah, you can talk to me.
Get hate mail.
But it's like, but we can't pretend like we can't make everything like too politically correct, because then we don't talk about anything. So if I say something and it offends you, you can let me know. But I'm just going to carry on. So there's a lot of people that are black that are saying a lot of the stuff you guys are doing, like, it doesn't. It's like when they say you people, they mean you, not black people. You guys are up in arms about this. This is kind of not our thing. As much as I've looked into it, the Blackout Tuesday thing, I looked at the hashtag, and it was mostly white people that were posting it, and a lot of it were people with their own pictures, and which totally defeats the purpose of Blackout Tuesday. And I don't get it. And so many people that are black were commenting and making videos, and it's like, what are you doing this for? Like, we're not, what's up? Like, you're protesting, but it's like in a way that, how is that helping us? Or I don't know. It's just, it got really confusing as the more I researched what Christians are trying to do to help, to where I almost wonder, like, are we helping? Are we, is Instagram, is that our way of protesting? Because if it is, it's not very effective, And I know we're going to get into it in a little more of what stuff we actually have to do. But on protesting and rioting, I think a lot of it, just to kind of sum it all up, is really on, we're all just really edgy and amped up, and we just want to do something, and this is how we do it, you know. So
I will just add something very briefly. If maybe you're not from the Imperial Valley of California, I do just want to share that obviously in the news you see lots of physical property damage and fires and things like that. But on Monday at 6 p.m. here in the Imperial Valley at our courthouse in El Centro, we had an incredible example on how protests should be done. It was peaceful. There was conversation. There were lots of Christians even there
Prayer.
who were praying, singing, and even up there at the microphone. We led the way for the rest of the world on how protests should be done, respectfully, with communication. No one up in arms and shouting, and there were a few negatory signs and that kind of stuff, but it was peaceful,
right.
and that was the way that it should be done.
And again, not that protesting is wrong, and you already showed why, and you talked about Jesus, protesting himself. Not that it's wrong. A lot of it, what I take issue with it, even just on social media, is how much of it is just not on the, like, they're not doing it for the right purposes. So making that clear, I'm not anti-protesting, but sometimes, I mean, you got to step back and, is this actually protesting, or what are we doing here?
I agree with you, Gabe. I think it's not that protesting is bad; it's what's fueling the protest. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you standing for? You know, and I think since we're speaking to a audience that are believers, right? An audience that is, hey, we're tuning in, we want to know more. How do we do this as a Christian? Well, we know why, as a Christian, we do what we want to do, right? Blessed are the peacemakers, right? We want to bring peace. We don't want to just kind of sit back, because I also don't believe God gave us a spirit of fear. You know what I mean? I think He's given us boldness with the Holy Spirit in us to then go out. And plus, we're the only ones that got the answer, right? To a world that is in shackles, right? And trying to figure out, like, hey, how do we escape this? What are the answers to this? We know the answer, right? And so are we just going to sit back, or are we going to do something about it, right? But again, in a way that is still honoring to God, and the fuel for it is righteousness. Honoring to God, and the fuel for it is righteousness. But if you're protesting for not those reasons, right? If you're doing it because, and I agree again with Gabe, like a lot of the people were actually giving black people a bad name with the way they were doing this. There were I even saw videos of some black people were like, hey, whatever you're doing, it's not for us. Like, we don't want our name. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, so what are you going to protest for? What is it in your heart that is like moving, that you're like, man, I want to do something? Why is that happening in your heart? You know what I mean? We should check it, right? We should check it for righteousness.
I saw or heard a podcast where these two guys were talking, and they were both black, so they can say some of these things more than I ever have the guts to, because this talk about racism, which we're about to jump into, because they tackle that really well, and I can't speak for that. Me not knowing that, I'm not. This whole thing right now seems to be a white versus black, or white versus everything else, and these guys talking about, I don't think that's really the issue. These guys are Christian, and they say the issue shouldn't be that a black man was killed, or that a white man killed a black man, or that a white cop killed a black man. The issue should be that someone who was made in the image of God was murdered. That's the issue. As a Christian, that really should be all we care about, right?
Yes.
That someone made in the image of God was killed, and as far as we're concerned, as followers of Jesus, that's what matters. It doesn't matter what color he was who was killed, or what color he was who killed him. If it was murder, it's injustice.
Yes.
That's what concerns us. And the problem, as we jump into talking about racism, is that we make it about race as Christians when we should make it about sin, right? We need to address sin in people's hearts, because until we don't fix the sin issue, then nothing else is going to get fixed. The racism, murder, extortion, none of that is going to end until we fix the sin issue. So as Christians, what should we be concerned with? Not protesting about racial injustice or any of these sort of things, although it's good to talk about those things, but we need to be concerned about the sin issue.
Yes.
How can we talk to people? How can we help them? How can we comfort them and tell them about a loving God? Sorry. That is, I mean.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hey. So yeah, that video. It was just a good conversation between me and Santi and Sean, and we don't claim to be experts on the issue. We know it's good for us to, as followers of Jesus, to sit down and to talk about these things, and to be here, be available for you if you have any questions on anything that was said or opinions that you want to be heard. So if you do have questions, reach out to me and we can have a conversation, and I'll listen to you. And I know this is something that's confusing, honestly, to us at a younger generation than the older people tend to see some things just kind of certain way, and sometimes we disagree with them, sometimes we feel like we're not heard, and I get that, and I just want to say that I'm here to listen, to be here for any of you. I do want to say that with everything going on, whatever you got out of this video, bottom line is that racism is wrong, and there's a lot that has to happen in the world for us to reconcile, to be where we're supposed to be. I wish that I could say it'd only take a couple years and it'd all be perfect, because this is a very hard thing, and it's sin. It's not about the color of the skin of the people murdered, although that's the issue right now. But it's just that people are murdering people, and there's sin in the world, and we need to understand that the devil's out there seeking to kill and destroy people, and to mess with us, and to make us turn against each other and turn against people of different color, and that doesn't really make sense. It's sin, that's the problem, and the enemy doesn't want to see us come together. So guys, I encourage you to pray for those around you, for those hurting, for our leadership in our country, that you would be part of this process, not just by protesting, not just by posting black pictures on your Instagram, but by actually doing something with God, and saying, God, I want to do this work alongside my brothers and sisters, and I want to pray. I want to be part of the change. So I encourage you guys to do that. And before we go into our small groups, Cam is going to lead us into a worship song. So guys, just listen to the lyrics. I'm not asking you to put your hands up. I'm not asking you to do anything that makes you uncomfortable, but listen to the words. And if you would worship, sing out loud, do whatever is right in your heart, but think on the words, think on what God wants you to hear from this, and let's take this time to thank God for His goodness. And after He's done with the song, we'll jump into small groups.
Baptized in the water, filled with the Holy Spirit, washed by the blood of the Lamb. I've been forgiven of my sins. I've been baptized in that water, filled with the Holy Spirit, washed in the blood of the Lamb. 'Cause we're free, really free, my friend. Yes, we're free. God's gonna move His place. God's gonna turn this whole world, gonna turn it upside down. God's gonna move His place. God's gonna move His place. God's gonna turn the whole world, gonna turn it upside down.
And I hope that as you guys go on about your week, that you remember the message of that song, that there's one name under heaven by which we must be saved. It's the name of Jesus. Only through Jesus can we be with God the Father. Only through Jesus can lives be made right. Can we be forgiven. Only through Jesus can we be reconciled in the world with everything going on, with the racial issues and the injustice going on in the world. Only God can make that whole. He has a plan to make it whole. He has a plan to make it all come together. And that started when Jesus died on the cross. That started the process of us being able to be made right. That's when we got the calling to love one another, to love God and love others. Those are the two things we were called to do: to love God, to love others. When we love others, we're not racist. You know, when we love others, we won't hurt people, we won't murder them, we won't steal, we won't do any of those things. That's God's master plan. It's just that as we love Him, we love others. And I'm ready for us to talk about that tonight. If you are interested in joining us for small group, this is our meeting ID for Zoom and our password, and we're going to leave this here, and
I can't hold it closer.
and Cam will hold it closer. Let's switch cameras over there. Wow. Look at that, 6 feet apart.
Hey man. Oh no.
Hey, this is not 6 feet, but we're glad that you guys tuned in. Cam will stand here for the next couple of minutes, and if you want to join us for small groups, we'll be ready for you. Actually, let me, what?
Just Cam.
Oh, yeah. See you guys. That's perfect.
Play some music or something.
Hey Google, play Spotify.